Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. My name is Wayne Bennett, and it's December the 21st, 2023, and we are at the Raleigh County Armory Civic Center in Beckley, West Virginia. And the tournament, it's a wrestling tournament called the Fallen Heroes Tournament in honor of two former wrestlers at Independence High School, Chuck Smith and Jeff Taylor. We're expecting 40 teams these next 2 days, and then on Saturday about 350 youth wrestlers, so it's going to be exciting. Our first guest today come all the way from Williamstown, West Virginia. And we got head coach and assistant coach from Williamstown High School, Tyler George and Dalton George. Pleased to have you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, I can remember Williamstown back when Bob Pickens was coaching, and I don't know how many state champions he had, about 27 or something like that.
I think it ended up being 36 or 38 by the time he was done.
Is that many? Wow. And Williamstown was, you had guys like Mike Mason and Rowell and people like that, and two of the best high school wrestlers that I've seen in West Virginia. What's going on down at Williamstown? How long have you been coaching, Tyler?
This is my fourth year as a head coach. My brother here, Dalton, is obviously my assistant, and we kind of rolled out of college. We were wrestling on the college scene for a little bit at Ohio Valley University before they ended up shutting down. My brother was an All-American. I stayed on as an assistant coach for a little bit, and then we decided to go back to our roots and try to pick up the program at Williamstown.
Now that's where Pat Soul was.
Yes.
And
Great.
I hated to see that program fold. It
Yes.
was the school closed down.
Yes. Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Now, Dalton, you had you were state champion 3 years, and you got beat when you was a junior,
Sophomore.
Yeah. Zach Brown.
Yes,
Before
sir.
he started the band.
Yeah, that is exactly right.
And actually, you were the last state champion they've had, right?
Yeah, I and David Hastings the same year.
Yeah.
He had won at 195 pounds, but yeah, 2014 was the last year that we've had a state champion. So.
Now, you guys wrestled smaller weight classes, didn't you? What'd you wrestle, Tyler?
My senior year, I was 145.
145,
Yes.
yeah. And you were?
132.
We used to take a youth team up to Williamstown and wrestle. But you guys are right there close to Parkersburg South and Parkersburg. And do you think this one-time transfer thing is going to affect you any? Or has it affected you?
Not quite yet. With two powerhouses in the same county as you and AAA, it's kind of hard to get some of those transfers. But, we definitely see it throughout the state and how it's affecting certain teams. I'm not saying that it won't ever affect us, but, we just haven't reaped any benefits of it or any tragedies yet.
It seems like that a lot of times it's the smaller schools that are going to get hit, when the kids are moving. And I got a feeling they're going to change that law back.
Yeah, we get overshadowed by the bigger schools, obviously, in the county. If someone's going to move to the county, they might go to a AAA school that's South or PHS that's very dominant. But I can tell you, Williamstown, we're coming back, and we got some big things going there. And I think that we're going to try to prove that name through our wrestling and our abilities and be able to show everybody that we can compete at a high level. And there's a lot of tradition at that school that we really care about, and it's not as much about us, or it's more about the school and the tradition and the community. And we're just eager to make sure that comes back in full-fledged.
Do you work in the school system?
I do, yes. I'm a PE and health teacher there. One of my older assistants, Aaron Shetter, I teach PE with him. And he took over the middle school program this year. So that's basically all we do all day is just talk wrestling, strategize. We're recruiting in the hallways, kids we got in class, like, hey, you look pretty solid. Why don't you come out and try this?
Yeah, I don't see how some of these coaches do it that don't work in the school. I mean, especially wrestling. I mean, keeping track of kids' weights and, grades and all that stuff. I just don't see how some of them do it.
I told my assistant the other day, like, I was a science teacher or history, I would never get anything done. That's all I'm doing. It seems like is checking on kids, grades, weight, behavior. But yeah, we got 25 kids on the team this year. When we took it over 4 years ago, it was down to 6, and we wouldn't have 3/4 of these kids if we didn't have someone working in the schools.
Are you getting any of those tough football players?
About half our team's football players,
Really?
And it definitely brings a little bit of an advantage. Obviously, our football team is very successful lately, and bringing some type of leadership role to that, with dominance in football to wrestling, I think helps a lot.
Well, if you look at the best teams in the state, almost all of them have great feeder programs. What about your feeder programs?
So when we took it over, obviously there's down or highs and lows and everything, but we kind of hit that slump where we were inheriting, where there might have been a couple down years in the youth. But from where it is the last couple years and now, the numbers are up, the experience is there, it's starting to feed to our middle school, and we're going to start reaping those benefits soon.
Well, it's great to see guys that are working with the youth that you don't have kids involved. Obviously, you're
Yes.
a little young.
Yes.
A lot of times coaches will put the time in while their boys are going through, and then they're done. There's a name for that, but I'm not sure. It's not a bad thing, but I like to see guys get in, put 20 years, 25 years in. That's the success. You like to come down here at the tournament. What's special about this tournament?
Well, Cliff and Jamie and them, they talked to us last year. Last year was the first year, obviously, that they did this. And, Cliff, he was coaching when we were wrestling. We're buddies with him. He's a great guy, great coach. And he really, he said, hey, we're trying to do this. It's something special. We're going to honor these 2 guys that died in line of duty. And when I schedule things around, I try to schedule at least one tournament and see everyone from each region to get a good perspective of how the field is. This is a great tournament because we don't get a chance to see a lot of Region 3 teams down in the southern part. So, your Greenbrier West, your Independence, your Shady Springs, some of those schools, this is a great chance to see them.
Cliff was sharing a story with me one time, and I can't think of what the story was now, but he said he had to keep one of the George boys separate from somebody else. It looked like it might be maybe it was each other. I don't know. But he could do it. But yeah, the great idea that Cliff and the guys had, and they did a real good job. Last year, unfortunately, weather kind of hampered it a little bit, but this year it looks like it's going to be great. And what can we look for in the state tournament from Williamstown this year?
Nothing. I'm not putting any expectations of the kids or as a team, but each year we're just trying to strive to do a little bit better than we did the year before. And as a small single A schools, we still got to compete against double A at the state tournament in a bracket. It does make it difficult. I think it's gotten much more competitive over the last 10, 15 years. But yeah, I think we've got 3 or 4 guys that might be able to break through that ceiling this year and get on the podium.
That's great. That's great. Well, guys, I appreciate you coming by and talking to me, and good luck today. And hope you guys have safe wrestling, and we'll be watching for you. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
Our next guest is Richwood High School's head wrestling coach, Cody Boone, and all the way from Nicholas County. Welcome, Cody.
Nice to be here.
Now, how many years have you been coaching high school wrestling?
I've been coaching since the fall of 2015.
And Richwood used to have some pretty good teams back when Kesterman and those guys wrestled. Tim Odell, Tim Bennett. It's way back. It's before you were alive. And but Lee Parlier wrestled there. They were actually. I had the privilege to call the first wrestling match at, back then, the new gym at Richwood High School. And it wasn't the first event, it was the first wrestling match, and it was between Richwood and Nicholas County, it was in front of the school in the daytime. And it was fun. Richwood came out with T-shirts on, pinned the Bears, and it was pretty exciting time. What's your background in wrestling? Did you have a background?
I wrestled 4 years in high school. Lee Parlier was my head coach. And actually during that time, I worked with Larry Alderman a lot. He was one of the former state champs.
Yes, I remember him.
So I'd come back every once in a while through college and help out. And then I finished college and got a hold of Lee and asked if he needed an assistant. And he said, actually, I was thinking this was probably going to be my last year. So it was one of those transitions you just kind of fall into.
If you didn't do it, it probably wouldn't get done, maybe.
I don't know who would have done it.
Yeah. Now, do you have an assistant now?
I do. That's Eric Blankenship.
I know after the flood and everything, where do you guys practice now?
So now we practice at the football field house. We have just over one mat. It's pretty close to one mat. It's just bigger than the circle. So we put that down and we use that.
Does the football team lift weights anywhere around there, or?
So on one side of the field house we have the mats. On the other side we have the weight room.
Oh, I see.
They take a break until about January just to give everyone some time off, and then they start lifting programs.
Now, when they build the new high school, are they going to have a weight room? A wrestling room?
Gosh, I hope so. I'm kind of worried. They're still working on all of that.
They're cutting back, and those kinds of things. Now, how many kids you got out this year?
I have 7.
I know the numbers have fluctuated sometimes at Richwood, and you guys are officially a single-A school. The assistant coach from Woodrow, Logan Brown, he wrestled at Richwood. He was pretty good wrestler. But do you have any kind of a feeder program or anything like that?
There's a youth program, and there currently is not a middle school program, but they are looking at having one of their coaches move up as those kids get older.
Uh-huh. And do you work in the school system?
Not anymore. I was a teacher, but I've transitioned out of that.
I had a buddy, Andrew Gilson, that worked up there somewhere. He used to coach a little bit, and you know him. Is he in administration or something?
Yeah, he's a principal now.
He's a principal at Richwood High?
Golly River Elementary. So
okay.
Still in Craigsville.
Andrew wrestled and played football for me at Park Junior High back in the day. And his dad coached wrestling at Independence High School. And so he's been around it all his life. How did you come down to this tournament? What's appealing about this tournament to you?
This tournament has a lot of great competition. Normally we stay really close to home the first couple, and then right before Christmas we get to come to this one. It's 8 matches. Like I said, good competition. I give them a short break during that Christmas to New Year territory, and then we have the guard duels in January right away. So it's nice to have, we have 2 tournaments with 18 matches.
Now, do you guys go home and come back like today?
Today we will, especially because they've told us that likely we'll be able to get done early. So yeah. Some tournaments will stay. We were going to stay last year, and that was the big snowstorm.
Yeah.
Where it was like -11.
Well, I've been in Richwood, and we were there wrestling one time, and they had a huge snowstorm, and we kind of got a caravan. We didn't have a bus; we just came in cars, and we had a caravan, and we came back up through Craigsville that way because we were afraid of the mountain, and it was tough snow. And once we got to Summersville, we were fine, but it was pretty rugged in Richwood. Now, what can we look for from your guys this year? Have you got some veterans or some young guys? Or
overall, I'm pretty young. I have Gary Koger at 120. He wrestled middle school. He's going to do okay. He's got a decent offense. We're working on that transition from middle school up to high school right now. Otherwise, lots of pretty young guys. My oldest is Cone McGeaney. He's my 190. He's wrestled high school for 3 years, and he wrestled 2 or 3 in middle school. He's looking to do pretty well. And I've got a heavyweight I've had for quite a while, Riley Deal.
How many weight classes are you forfeiting?
Right now I fill 6, so I'm forfeiting 8.
Yeah. What do you think about the weight classes? Do you think the weight classes for high school, we ought to reduce it some, a couple spots, or keep it the same, or increase it, or how do you feel about that?
Personally, I haven't had a lot of problems because I normally have had pretty small teams. So the lower weights, everyone can usually bump around. And then I know that right now sometimes I end up with kids that are on that lower end of heavyweight. Kind of wish that it was still 220 up to heavyweight, but then you still run into the problem from 90 up to 215 and 220.
Well, I appreciate you coming by and talking to us, and good luck today. And we'll be looking for the orange and black out there, and hopefully you'll get all the matches you can and win all you can. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next guest is from Liberty High School, Cole Blankenship. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, sir.
How long have you been coaching at Liberty?
This is my third year as the head coach.
Third year.
I think 5 years total. I spent 2 years as the assistant with Coach Nick Hilton.
What kind of background did you have with wrestling?
Wrestling was something I've done pretty much my whole life. But once I got closer to my high school years, I started getting a lot of football scholarship offers and stuff like that. So I ended up quitting wrestling my sophomore year of high school, and it's still to this day one of my bigger regrets.
Is your dad Matt?
Yes.
Okay, well, I coached Matt at Park Junior High.
Okay, yeah.
And he played football for me and wrestled, and he's playing a little music now.
Yeah, absolutely. He's always traveling around playing some old time banjo.
Well, he was on some pretty good teams that we had at Park.
Yeah.
And a good bunch of athletes went through at that particular time.
Absolutely.
Made me look really good. But Liberty's program this year has built, you got numbers, that helps.
Absolutely, yeah.
And are the feeder programs building you up a little bit now? Or?
Well, the feeder programs have, historically in that area down in Glendaniel, there hasn't been much of one. But Coach Hilton that I was just talking about a minute ago is now he's in charge of a large youth program now that's got probably 350 kids. So the feeder program has just really gotten rolling here in the past few years.
And he's taking them around. That's a Coalfield Elite
Coalfield
team.
Elite, yeah, absolutely.
They're going around quite a few places. Now, you also, along with your coaching responsibilities, all of a sudden, girls wrestling has livened up. And
absolutely.
How does that work? with the practices and stuff.
Our practices they're one practice. They're right there with everybody. They have a separate locker room and stuff like that. But yeah, we practice. We do everything together.
So they go through the same drills that the guys do.
Yep.
And how many girls do you have?
I started the season with 15, I think. Now I'm down to about 12.
I noticed in the last poll that you guys were second in the state or third.
The girls team?
Yeah.
Yeah, the girls do very well. I have a returning state champion at 138 from last year. She's doing pretty well this year. And I've got a couple seniors that are wrestling well. The girls team's looking pretty good.
You think that, of course, girls wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the country.
Sure.
In high school. But somewhere along the line, that's a lot of responsibility. Coaches are going to have to get a raise.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at it. And it's one of those things where I don't think I would feel right if there was a separate girls coach. If there was a separate coach for girls wrestling, I wouldn't like that. I don't think, because I want them to be there at my practice with the guys, learning the same stuff. It doesn't bother me at all. I love it. I wish we had a 20 girls. Do you have any
girls that wrestle for the boys team?
Yeah. My starting 106, and I think that might be the only one. Because even, in high school, the strength gap is what really gets them. Because, I have a returning state champion who will lose to my starting 138 guy, no problem at all. He will beat her pretty consistently. And it's just that strength gap that's hard to really make up for.
Okay, situation. Your 106-pounder wrestles in the region, qualifies for the states.
Yeah.
And they've got a girls' state tournament at the same time this year. What does she do?
Oh, man. As her coach, I'd probably tell her to go win the girls' states instead of, trying to take a shot at the guys' states. Because it gets pretty intense, at the state tournament.
Of course, if your team was battling for a championship.
Sure, absolutely. If I had 4 or 5, we might try to do both.
How many people do you have on the boys' team itself?
My total team right now is probably 35, 36.
Wow, that's good numbers.
Yeah, and that's what I was just talking to some of the other coaches in the room about. Working in the building. I'm a history teacher. I teach 10th grade history, and just being in there, seeing them in the halls, it makes recruiting pretty easy. And so my assistant coach is also a history teacher, works in the building with me. So between the two of us, we can really get in their ears and convince them to at least try it. And once they come out, they usually stay.
Yeah, that's a big advantage. And
absolutely.
Actually, when I coached in the building, and I couldn't even imagine not being in the building.
Yeah.
Especially in wrestling.
Well, and what I've come to realize is most of these coaches are not in the building.
Yeah.
I know several off the top of my head that aren't even affiliated with the school other than coaching.
I know.
So it really, it really helps.
And that day-to-day contact is extremely important. What about the number of weight classes that the secondary schools has adopted?
Yeah.
Do you like that number, or you think it ought to be reduced? Or
I don't think I have a real problem with it. I think the weight classes are pretty good where they're at. I think there's a pretty good argument for adding one around 235, 250. 215 to 285 is a pretty big jump. And I think they're fine, but I think there's a pretty good argument for like a 250.
Yeah, but you look at states like Pennsylvania and Ohio, they've kind of cut back. I mean, they cut a weight class, and because they have so many forfeits, and that is a problem in West Virginia with a lot of the single-A schools. They have a hard time filling those. What's the hardest part about coaching wrestling?
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't think it's very hard. I love it. There's never really a time where I'm like, dang, I got to go coach wrestling today. Like, I never dread it. Maybe traveling to a tournament, but it's getting to a point where there's so many good tournaments in our area that there's really no need to travel that far.
You don't have to travel that far.
Yeah. I mean, I think our furthest tournament this year is maybe an hour and a half. But yeah, man, I don't find it super difficult at all. I love it.
Yeah, a lot of other teachers or educators don't realize that on Friday when they're leaving at 2:30 in the day, here you're heading somewhere to wrestle, and you add up all those weekends and the hours, and it can be
I think I have very fond memories of my wrestling coaches, middle school coach, high school coach. Those are some of my best memories, and these kids come from just such a rough area that I really am happy to provide them with an experience similar to the one I had. Just good coaches that cared and, were excited about coaching and being in the room. So, yeah, man, I love it.
Are you married?
I am, yeah.
What is
my wife's name?
Spouse. What's her name, and what does she think about these?
My wife Taylor is very supportive of all of my many hobbies. I'm always doing something. So, yeah, she's super supportive. She coaches the dance team at Liberty. She also is a teacher at Liberty with me. So I think she's pretty understanding and lets me sort of do my thing.
Well, listen, Cole, I appreciate you coming by and talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I hope you have a great tournament. It looks like it's going to be a good weekend.
Absolutely.
And we'll be looking for some Liberty guys on the podium.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next guest is Logan Brown. He's the assistant coach at Woodrow Wilson High School and former wrestler at Richwood High School. Mm-hmm. And welcome, Logan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Coach. I'm excited.
Well, how did you end up in Raleigh County?
I grew up, went to Richwood, graduated from there, and then I went to college at WVU. Was up there for 4 years, and then I work full time for a youth ministry called Young Life. And it was just starting in Beckley the year I graduated college, so it worked out perfect to I was going to go on full-time staff, and they needed a full-time staff person in Beckley, and here I was. And it was kind of cool because being from Richwood, Beckley was kind of like the big city for me growing up. So it was like, oh man, I'm moving to civilization now. Man, they've got the mall and Chick-fil-A. So this is the place to be.
Yeah, Richwood, I had talked to the head coach from Richwood earlier, and I refereed the first wrestling match ever held in at that time, the new gym at Richwood High School.
Yeah.
And there used to be an old gentleman that was the announcer there for years. This is long before your time, but the first wrestling match they had was in the daytime in front of the school, and Richwood wrestled Summersville or Nicholas County.
Right.
And they had come out with T-shirts on, pin the Bears, and it was really. And Richwood had some good squads. They had the coach at that time was a Longenecker, and but I even refereed some when Lee Parlier wrestled, and Tim Odell.
Lee was my coach.
Aldermans, Kestermans, all them
Yep.
guys. It was. You finished second in the state, didn't you?
Yeah, senior year, I was state runner-up. It was, I was the regional and state runner-up. The guy that beat me was Alex Daniels from Independence. So he beat me in regionals and then beat me again a couple weeks later at the state tournament. But it was a good year, really. I can't remember. I was one of the first, state finalists from Richwood in years. I can't remember how many, but it had been a while.
Yeah, I knew the wrestling had been down a little bit. And you sometimes you're as good as your workout partners. Did you have workout partners?
No. So that senior year, and you know how wrestling goes. You start off with a certain number of kids on the team, and then throughout the season, it's a tough sport. Family stuff happens, kids kind of trickle down. Well, by the time we got to regionals senior year, I was 195. And it was me and our 132 was the whole team. There were two of us, and we were 60 pounds different. So practice was a lot of running and not a lot of wrestling those last couple weeks. And that, probably hurt me in the long run as far that compared to Independence's wrestling room when they were on their multiple time kind of state champ tour. But I don't know. It is what it is. Made do with what we had, I guess.
Do you still have family in Richwood?
Yeah, my mom and dad still live in Nicholas County.
Now, how did you get hooked up with Woodrow Wilson wrestling? How did that?
Yeah, it was really weird. I moved down in the fall of 2019, and I'm doing Young Life youth ministry for high school kids. So I'm like, well, I want to get to know some high school kids. I wrestled. I was about the only thing I was good at. So I was like, I can coach something. And I talked a little bit to Street because he was still the head coach at that time, and then didn't hear anything back all fall. And then right before wrestling, he kind of messages me and says, hey man, I'm not coaching wrestling this year. There's this other guy, Matt Osborne, that's taken over. And so I sent him this email out of nowhere and said, hey Matt, can I come to practice? And I think at that point it was just him. So he was just excited to have a warm body. So he was like, yeah, man, come on, go ahead. So showed up and kind of got plugged in ever since, really.
Now the kids that are there, they've come, most of the nucleus of the kids have come up together through the youth program and the middle school, and now in high school, a lot of them are juniors, and the coaching staff, there's about 6 of you now, I think. You guys work together pretty good. That's do you all have different duties or different weight groups that you work with, or?
Yeah, kinda. It's nothing official, but it's just kind of, I think we've a lot of us have found the niche that we're kind of good at. So, guys like Adam and Jeff handle the morning stuff, the AM lifts and that type of thing. Matt kind of runs practice. Jeremy Reeves is a administrative genius. So anything that comes to, running things or efficiency or organization, he's king of. And I've wrestled as a bigger guy, and I am a bigger guy, so I tend to kind of wrestle around with our heavyweights if we, when we even have them, which is we don't have one again this year. But the bigger guys are usually kind of where I gravitate to.
Tell me a little more about your ministry. What is that all about?
Yeah, Young Life. It's a parachurch ministry. It's been around since the 40s. Started in Texas. It's been kind of steadily growing in West Virginia the past 10 years or so. We had it in Richwood when I was in high school. It kind of got me connected to, really it was my first ever connection to Christianity in general. But then I kind of got involved in high school and college, and have come to start it here. And it's primarily Christian mentoring. So we'll run events, we'll have Bible studies and outreach events and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of it is just carrying adults that kind of build relationships, get to know kids through hard times, middle school, high school, college kids, walk through life with them, be there as kind of a mentor, kind of big brother, big sister figure in a lot of ways. And we'll partner with local churches and other organizations like FCA and that kind of stuff too.
Are you affiliated with Fellowship of Christian Athletes at all, or?
Yeah, we're kind of parallel for the most part, like kind of both acknowledging doing good things. And most of the time they meet during school or right after, and our stuff is usually later in the evenings. But I know we always encourage our Young Life kids go to FCA, and I think they do the same. I have an office in the same church as Brett Floyd as the director of FCA here. So they're great. They're a great organization. We try and do as much stuff together as seems feasible,
Now with this team at Woodrow, you guys wrestle about every weekend, a lot out of town. Are you married? Mm-hmm. How does that work with your marriage?
Yeah. Well, it works because my wife's incredible in a lot of ways. She's patient and understanding, but it's kind of cool. She, is a volunteer with Young Life, and so she helps coach volleyball at Woodrow. So it's kind of like in the fall, she's coaching volleyball, and I'm going to all these volleyball tournaments, and then it's just kind of an unwritten rule in the winter that shifts to I'm coaching, and so she's showing up to all these wrestling meets and driving to Lord knows where. She's great though. She's a night shift ER nurse at Raleigh General, so that's where she is right now, is working, or she's sleeping. But her schedule is pretty flexible, which is nice. That makes a lot of the support possible.
Where do you see yourself 10 years from now?
Man, I have no idea.
Where do you want to see yourself 10 years from now?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I think in a lot of ways, I could legitimately see myself doing about the exact same thing. Maybe with a couple kids in 10 years. I love, Young Life. I love youth ministry. I love Beckley. I love coaching wrestling. My wife loves it here. We feel like we've really kind of joined the community in a lot of ways. Beckley feels like home. So I don't know, man. There's a strong chance doing a lot of the same thing with, I don't know, a little more back pain, maybe.
Well, maybe with the kids, they might be wrestlers.
Yeah, that's right. That'd be great if they were.
Logan, I appreciate you coming by and talking to us.
Absolutely, Coach. Thanks.
You guys got a busy couple days here, and good luck to you. And I think we'll see several of your people on the podium. So good luck and be safe.
Thanks, Coach.
Our next guests are Beverly and Chuck Easter from the Nitro area, and these two people, their family is kind of like royalty in the wrestling world in West Virginia. They had 3 sons that won a total of 11 state championships. That's correct, unbelievable. And I had the opportunity to watch them, I think, at all those particular championships. Where did you guys come from?
We just got started wrestling. I mean, we were a rural family, and we were playing midget league football, and the kids were small, and we got introduced to youth wrestling, and that was just the beginning of it. We started out in Nitro's Pee Wee program, and that was the grassroots. It just escalated from there.
I thought you might have moved in from out of state or something, but so you're homegrown, then, aren't you?
Yeah.
Now, did your sons play any other sports?
Yeah, throughout they were, when you tried when they were younger, all the sports more or less. Yeah, and then as they got older, high school age, it'd be easy just to jump to, cross country and track and wrestling were the three sports they were in.
What made them above the other kids? I mean, how do you 11 state championships? And I mean,
it was. You want to say it?
Well, actually, Ken Cherto had started a wrestling school in Huntington, and they went there. So I give him credit for he's the one that got him started on the right path.
Actually, I came down there one time, and you guys were having a camp. Is at one of the hotels. It wasn't in Huntington, but it was around Cross Lanes or somewhere. I can't remember now.
It might have been in Barbersville.
Yeah, that's where it was. And Cherto was working
that
out.
was one of his camps. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, when they got to high school, Steve White was the high school coach.
Correct. Yeah.
And did you volunteer?
I was a volunteer assistant, and I ended up being a coach after Steve left. It was just, it's a group effort. All the different coaches in the state, different coaches in the region, coaches out of the country through camps. I mean, just a whole lot of men influenced what they did.
Did any of the boys wrestle in college?
Matt, our oldest one, did. Anthony, our middle one, did. And Seth never competed in college, no.
Where did Anthony and Matt wrestle?
Matt went to Cornell, and Anthony went to the Citadel, and Seth also went to Cornell.
Did he wrestle all 4 years at Cornell?
Matt did. Matt's the only one who wrestled his whole career. Yeah.
Is that the same coach they have now at Cornell?
No, Coach Cole retired. I'm not sure. Mike Gray has it now. Mike Gray was actually the coach at Cornell now, was a kid we used to compete with and be in camps with a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cornell's got a heck of a program now.
Well, they really came around.
Yeah, I went down and watched them wrestle Virginia Tech last year, and they were loaded.
The thing, you never know where your opportunity comes from. We were wrestling in Fargo in freestyle, which for us is all-season wrestling. And the Cornell coach saw Matt wrestle one of the kids he recruited. And we lost the match as far as that, but it caught his eye well enough. So, you just never know where the opportunity comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got him into the various colleges. We didn't dream it would be possible that wrestling could get you into an Ivy League. And we blew it off. It was like, no, there's no way we can do it. But the thing is, the Ivy League schools and some of the others is it grants? It's not athletic scholarships. So you're accepted into the college.
They do grant and aid type things.
Right, and then your aid package is formulated. And we told him, we can't afford it. And he said, that's great. So that's perfect. And coming from West Virginia, because West Virginia kids don't pursue those kind of opportunities. They don't know about them. But it's just, if you can pull the grades well enough and you can into your specific sport, you do other things included, that shows you're kind of a rounded kind of student, they become very interested.
Now, of course, you not only to be a good student to get into Cornell, but to stay in Cornell. I mean, Ivy League school and.
It's tough. Matt called us one first year and said, "I'm the dumbest kid up there," and said, "You're up there. Just stick it out."
Now, when those boys wrestled at Nitro, of course, Parkersburg and Parkersburg South were the teams.
Oh, yeah.
And Nitro, probably the best finishes they could get was like 6th or 7th, was up in that.
Team-wise.
Yeah. And as far as the state tournament's concerned, But your guys never had any problems with the Parkersburg South wrestlers or the Parkersburg guys.
We had one problem with them, but yeah, that's who we lost to in a semifinal, was to Parkersburg High.
How many times were one of your sons most outstanding wrestler at the state tournament? I know there was at least 2.
Yeah, Matt was and Seth both were.
Now, do you have any grandkids?
No grandkids, and we're just now, our oldest one just now getting married, so they've waited a while to find the right person.
Yeah, well, maybe we got some wrestlers coming up or something in the future.
Yeah, they really pulled away from the sport a lot. Yeah, I think for the guys that stay in a lifetime, they're very unique. You know, 'cause it's a very demanding type of sport, and you just have this window that you're really interested in, you're motivated, and when you're finished, it's kind of like, no. Nitro being the area it is compared to Parkersburg South, it's not a huge supported type of program.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the interest, but it's a small core group. It's not a community support thing like some of the other teams have. So it makes it a little more difficult.
Well, I always thought, you have some years, certain teams will have some talent moving up and everything, but I always said that the state championship year in and year out's got to go through Wood County. I mean,
pretty much, yeah. We even did. When Cherto's camp, when he left and moved to Pennsylvania, we called around, and the Junior Patriots team, we competed with them for 3 years as a Junior Patriot. And we would drive we lived in Red House, so Bev would drive from there to Parkersburg South practice with Junior Patriot, which was 15 miles out of windy country road and then interstate, to get up there. And that was 2 or 3 nights a week she would go up there. If they were having practice, we were going.
The parents have to be dedicated too. Think about the weekends. When you guys had kids in high school, did you ever have a weekend that you just took off yourself away from wrestling?
Not really. Yeah. Once we got really involved into it, everything, that was the focus of it. It was like everything went around it. We did some extreme things. Bev would finish teaching during the year, and she would be working summer camps. And the boys virtually all summer were in camps getting exposed from Olympic level guys down to the high school and whichever coaches were willing to help. So her dedication to them.
And you don't. So a lot of times you don't know which direction to go. When we started the youth program around here, we had people coming in, Rob Waller and Nate Carr, and some of those guys would come in and do a camp or a clinic for us, and sometimes the theories would be a little different, what they, and each year seemed like, got to stand up, and the next one, legs, you got to do this and that, and you just have to decide what fits your child.
That was the advantage the boys had. They were taught by so many different, and each one of them picked what worked for them. So their styles were totally different. They did not wrestle a thing a lot.
Yeah. And now, the high schools sort of follow the colleges. Now the colleges got 3-point takedowns, and so they're putting a little more emphasis on the feet.
Right.
And I kind of like the 3-point takedown myself, because if you're 2 points behind, you still got a shot, to do something, or
especially with the college riding time and all that they have.
Yeah. Now, were you an athlete when you were in high school?
I was, yeah.
What did you do?
Mostly football and track. That was it. I never did wrestle.
At what school did you go to?
I went to Polka High. We graduated back in '79, both of us.
I remember when the Polka Dots had a guy that weighed about 360 pounds.
That was Mel Reed, big Mel.
Yeah, and it wasn't long. Shady Spring had a guy, Chris, can't remember his last name now, but it was right around the year that he was wrestling is when they dropped the weight class to 285,
Right,
and he weighed about 335 and couldn't. But I remember the boy from Polka.
It was unlimited, yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Polka had pulled 2 state champs. In our long history, before we ended up in Nitro, we were going to try to start the program at Polka. To go to Nitro, we ended up moving when we went there. But anyhow, they wasn't really completely on board with it. So then we tried to go to Huntington. We were in the process of buying a house, and I had signed for the house. By the time I got Beverly back down to sign for it, somebody else bought it. So we missed going to Huntington High that close. And then we ended up at Nitro that put together a group of kids that had worked out together ever since they were young kids. So that's how we ended up there at Nitro.
What do you think about this one-time transfer in West Virginia?
Yeah. It's really it's hurt smaller schools. I mean, kids have the right to pursue the best they can, but I don't know. It's really, really hurt the balance of what I've seen in athletics so far.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the small schools are going to suffer because right when you get that 1 or 2 good kids and somebody comes along.
Well, like you said, when we couldn't get a program together at POCO, we actually made the physical move. We did not transfer the kids. We moved to be in district.
I think they'll change that law. It's kind of leaning toward going back to the direction that you'd have to change residences before you're eligible, but I don't know for sure. How about the weight classes? Do you think there ought to be more weight classes, fewer weight classes, or you think they're okay?
I think the weight classes are pretty well rounded now. I think they're where they land in the high weights and the low weights. That's pretty average for the kids. The way they do the weigh-ins and all the other things that are going on. I think it's a little more beneficial to the kids. We don't see the extreme weight cutting that really kept me away from the sport when I was in high school. It was like, you had to do this and that and all that, and it wasn't nearly the rules. And then when they started instituting the hydration test and those kind of things, it makes sense. The biggest thing is not really the weight you're asked to add, but is to be skilled enough and interested enough to be successful. It's just something the kids got to apply themselves to. A parent can't make them do it.
Yeah. Well, I think the Russians, that was one of the things that they didn't cut a lot of weight, even back in the old days. I mean, they just wrestled up or, whatever, and we probably now getting it. Now, what about, what are you guys doing up here in Beckley?
We're doing, Cliff, we've known him since he was an athlete, We knew him when he was a kid in the camps and when he was at Edinburgh and everything in between. And he was at the tournament, asked if we come help, so we're like, sure.
It's a great tournament, and glad you guys are here giving back. And
you have to.
You got two busy days ahead of you.
It'll be fun.
Are you going to work the middle school too?
Pardon?
Are you going to work the middle school thing?
We're going to sit down and whatever goes on until somebody tells us we're done, we're done. And we've helped out at the WSAZ and the state tournament for years now, so we're used to staying until it's finished and being the last one to leave and see who gets what awards, that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for coming by, and thank you for talking to me, and we'll keep an eye on you. Don't make any mistakes today.
We'll make mistakes, just hope it doesn't matter.
Thank you.
All right.